Hey y'all, welcome in. Pull up a seat and let's get this video started. Hey y'all, this is a true story of what happened to me and my family when we lived in Walnut Park in Gadsden, Alabama. We were moving to Walnut Park and I was on a house hunt. So I found what I thought would be the perfect house. And, well, it was for the first 2 weeks. We would hear little bumps, you could hear whispers and you could see things at the corner of your eye. Wasn't no big deal. We didn't worry about stuff like that. Well, one night, the kids got to bed after they had their bath. They got to bed, and I went to my bedroom, and I laid down, and my door opened, and I looked, and I seen a shadow. Wasn't nothing you could see through. It was solid shadow. And I thought, okay, when did my husband get home? So I turned on the light next to the bed. It was gone. I got up. And the way the house is shaped, you had a hallway that went down. And then you had at the end of that hallway, you had another hallway. So the hallway was a T shape. Got down to the end of the hallway because I thought, well, maybe he went to the bathroom. Went to the bathroom, he wasn't in there. Got to the very end of the hallway, and I looked to my right, I looked to my left, and I seen the black shadow go into the living room. So I thought, okay, I'm going to cut him off. Turned around, went back down the hallway, went into the den, and came into the kitchen to go into the living room. There was nobody there. Then I felt something shove me. And I said, okay. So I turned around. Nobody was there. My phone rang. And it was my phone rang. And it was my husband, my then husband. And he said, I've got to work late. I said, you didn't come home? He said, no. I said, there was somebody standing in the doorway of the bedroom. And he said, well, I'll tell him I can't work late. I've got to come home. So he came home. And we looked high and low in that house. We went in the kids' room. We looked under the beds, in the closets. We looked everywhere. We even checked the doors. The doors were locked. And because you had the front door that came into the living room, in that T-shape hallway where it T'd and it was like this way, past Seth's room, my second oldest son, there's a doorway leading out to the backyard. Then there's, in the den, there's glass sliding doors. When you lock it, there's a bar that you put there. That way it can't open. It was still there. The bar was there. The door was still locked. Then you had the side door that came out of the kitchen into the carport. That door was locked. He had to use his key to get in. And my husband did. And anyways, like I said, we looked high and low. Looked in the laundry room. We even went outside. We looked around. We checked the windows. Everything was locked up tight. Well, he went, took his shower, and he got out of the shower. He sat on the couch. I went back to bed. I heard him talking in the den where he was watching TV. And so I was like, well, who is he talking to? And I heard, sounded like a female voice talking back. I was like, okay. But what was strange was the voice sounded like mine. So I got up and I went into the den and I listened. Well, I went to the door of the den. I didn't go in the den. Went to the door of the den and I listened. And sure enough, he was talking to somebody that had my voice. He thought he was talking to me. He thought I was in the kitchen. But he thought he was talking to me. Because where the den is, there's a big doorway. And right there's the kitchen. He thought I was in the kitchen. I stood there for 5 minutes listening to their conversation. Every word out of that entity's mouth that sounded like me was saying things I would say. When I walked into the den and stood beside of him, the look on his face, he was terrified. He said, was you not in the kitchen? I said, nope, I was in the bedroom. And, well, we left it at that. About a few days later, I was getting the kids ready for school. And we kept hearing banging coming from Marlon, which then was my youngest. Because then I had 3 boys then. And so we went. I told the boys to go ahead and get their backpacks and get everything that they needed so I could take them to school. And I told them, I said, I'm going to be right back. I went in there in Marlon's room, and you could hear it. Then in Devin's room, I heard knocking on the wall. So I went in Devin's room. There was nothing. I heard Marlon, my youngest, say, Mom, we got to go now. Mom. I said, I'm coming, baby. Marlon was scared. I kept asking him. He would not talk about it. Seth, my second to youngest, or second to oldest, he's a big talker, but he wouldn't talk about what they seen. Marlon and Seth just kept saying, I want to move. I don't want to live in this house. I want to move. I said, well, we can't move. We just moved in this house. I asked my boys. I said, why do y'all want to move so bad? Mom, I don't like the house. We don't like the house. Then my oldest, Devin, the one that is deaf, he was telling me too. He doesn't feel right in that house. So, when I got them dropped off at school, when I went back to the house, I told my husband what was going on, what the kids said. And he said, you know what? I don't feel right about this house either. He said, what are you feeling? I said, I have strong feelings about this house, but I've been ignoring it because right now we cannot afford to move. We just moved in this house. So, later that day, my husband goes to work. It's time for me to go pick up the boys. I picked up Seth and Marlon first. Then I would pick up Devin. Because Devin would ride the bus from the deaf school. And so I went to the school to pick up Seth and Marlon. And they have a place where the parents can sit and wait on their children. And so me and the other parents were sitting there, and I said, y'all not going to believe this. And they were like, what? And I said, I found the most prettiest house. I love it. I love the shape of it. I love the fenced in backyard. I love it all. And it's super cheap. And they said, oh, really? Congratulations. I said, yeah, it's right here in Walnut Park. Oh, well, you're not far from the school. No. Where is it? I told them the street. I told them the address. They both, the man and the woman I was talking to, both of their mouths dropped open. They looked at each other. They said, how long you been in there? A couple of days? I said, going on 3 weeks. Why? Nobody lasts more than 3 days in that house. People get in there, they'll move in. 3 days later, they moved out. One family that I was told had moved in, left in the middle of the night, left all their stuff there. I said, well, I hear things. I said, we've heard voices, we've seen shadows, and my kids don't really. But I told them, the boys just don't feel right in that house. I'm feeling things. I'm hearing whispers. And they said that they were shocked that we stayed as long as we have. And I said, well, what's going on with the house? They told me what the story was. If it is true, I can't find anything. No documentation, no nothing. But what we were told was there was a couple, an old couple, that lived in the house. That the house did belong to them. They were into devil worshiping and Satanism, whatever you want to call it. And they were into witchcraft. And I know people say, well, witchcraft isn't bad. Well, there are some bad witchcraft. And they said that they was like having a little dance studio in there. And kids would come up missing. And they said this was back years ago, like in the 60s or 70s, something like that. And that they couldn't find the children. And it's just these kids from around that area was coming up missing. They couldn't say anything. They couldn't accuse or, not accuse, but arrest the old man and old lady because there was no evidence. They went into the house. They looked. They searched. They could not find nothing. They couldn't find anything in that house. Well, I'm trying to remember exactly what made the police come and dig in the backyard. I think they were putting up a fence. The old man and old lady was putting a fence up. A privacy fence, because they were building houses on the left and on the right of them. They were adding on to the neighborhood. And whoever it was that was putting in the fence dug, and they found something in the yard, called the police. This is what was told to me. Like I said, I do not know if Like I said, I don't know if this is true or not. This is what was told to me. What was told to me was that when the police got there, they started digging and they dug up bodies of these children that were missing. They had evidence now. They arrested the man and the woman. The house, the property, became a crime scene. Well, years later, on down the line, somebody bought it and they started, it would go from one owner to another. No one told me this. The man who was going to sell us this house, and I say going to because, honey, we left. But the guy who was selling us this house, or going to sell us this house, never told us anything about this house. We didn't research property. You know, it was the early, let's say it was 2006, or no, 2007, I think. But, yeah, it was the early 2000s. But we didn't think to research property or what was on the property, what happened there. But I do know that when you buy a house in Alabama, they are supposed to let you know if there has ever been a crime there, if there's ever been a death in the house, if the house is haunted or potentially haunted. They are supposed to tell you this. The man didn't tell us anything. But we all did fall in love with the property, the house, everything. It was perfect. Let's go forward to week number 4. Week number 4, that was our last week in that house. We lasted a month in that house. Well, yeah, it was a month. I had to go grocery shopping and get stuff for the house, like cleaning products and toilet paper and stuff like that. And so I ran down to Walmart, and while I was gone, my sons and their dad was sitting on the couch. They were watching TV. And I don't remember the name of the movie. It had Martin Lawrence and Raven-Symoné in it. It was about her going off to college and stuff. But anyways, they were watching that. And my then husband, he told me that he seen this black shadow, thick black shadow, come from out of the hallway into the den and stand right behind our son Marlon. And he said that this thing bent over and was looking down at him. And he said that he called Marlon's name. Marlon turned around. Marlon didn't see the black shadow, apparently. But because he turned around, he said, "What is it, Dad?" He said, "Come here." My husband told him, "Come here. Come here now." Marlon started to go to him, and that black shadow picked up my son. Picked him up. And my husband jumped off the couch, ran over there and grabbed him, screamed for the children, and told them to get out of the house, to come with him. They all was standing on the carport when I pulled back up. I didn't know what was going on. We didn't have cell phones. We had landlines. And so I didn't know what was going on. I pulled up, and he said, "We got to go somewhere tonight." And I said, "Why? What's going on?" And he told me what happened. And I said, "Tomorrow we're going to go look for a house." I said, "But as of tonight, we're all going to stay in our bedroom, and we will sleep in there. The kids can sleep on the bed, and we can sleep on the floor." So we had all three of the boys in our bed, and me and my husband slept on the floor. Well, he slept. I didn't, because after what he told me, I was kind of afraid to go to sleep, because I felt this thing, whatever it was after my son. But the next morning, we all got up. I told my husband to get in the bed while I was taking the boys to school. And me and my best friend, we always took turns on Fridays driving, because we would go to take the boys to McDonald's and treat them to breakfast before we took them to school. Well, all the kids were out the door except for my best friend's son and me. We were the last two that was in the house. And her little boy turned around to say something to me. And when I say that this child went from a reddish tone skin to white, I'm talking, he was white. His eyes got that big, and he yelled, "Get out the house, get out the house, get out the house. Go, Shell, get out the house." I turned around because I wanted to see what he was so scared of. There was this, looked like a kid, looked like a boy, was like in one of those backwards crawls, but his head was turned completely around where it was right, but his body wasn't. And he was going, like that, and his tongue was sticking straight out, and this black globby goo was coming out of his mouth, and he was doing a spider crawl towards us. I grabbed my best friend's son by the arm, and I tell you, that child was as heavy as me, because then I was like really, really skinny. I picked that child up and I took off out that door. I didn't even lock the door. I shut it, but I didn't lock it. But you could hear banging in that house like it was mad because it couldn't get us. And I'm going to tell you right now, I took my children to my mother and my stepdad's house for the weekend and let them stay there while me and my husband packed everything up. Because I'm telling you, we got out of that house. And when we was moving, we were moving our furniture and everything. And we moved during the daytime, because there was no way I was stepping foot back in there at night. And there was no way that I was going to go in there at night. And if I did, I had somebody with me. Well, we was packing everything up, and the sun was shining so beautiful that day. So I took down my curtains off of the sliding door, glass doors. I had a little small area rug in that den. I rolled it up and I zip tied it, and I was getting it ready to go on the moving truck. I turn around, and shining on the floor, I'm telling you, it was engraved, like somebody took like a tool or something and carved a pentagram in that beautiful hardwood floor. I had pictures and everything, because I had a camera and I took pictures of the floor. I took pictures of everything. And I'm telling you, it put me into an asthma attack. To know that we were in this house and we were sitting, my children were sitting on this pentagram. And But we got moved. We got everything. Well, I thought we had everything. Um, Me and my husband was talking about, and I said, "Where's my computer?" He said, "Your laptop's over there." I said, "No, my computer and my typewriter. Where are they?" And he said, "Did we not get everything out of the living room?" I said, "I didn't go in the living room." I said, "I was in the den. I was packing everything up. Did you not get it?" "No." It was 11 o'clock at night. I had to trot back over to this house. I pulled into the driveway, had the keys in my hand. I said, "Nope, nope, I can't do it." So I went to a friend of mine's house, knocked on the door, and had him go with me to the house to get the rest of everything out of that house. He ain't scared of nothing. He wasn't scared of anything. He went with me. And he told me, he said, "Well, come on." He said, "We can get this done faster." He said, "You can come in here and help me." And I said, "I don't want to go in. I don't feel right. I feel it's something dark in that house." And he's like, but he said, "No, I'm with you. You're fine. You're fine." So I went in there. We got everything out. He took a walk through to make sure we had everything off the walls, the cabinets, everything, closets. He made sure we had everything out. So then me and him went around the back of the yard, make sure we had all of my children's like toys and everything, because they were little. And we had everything. But honey, when I say do research on houses before you get them, do that. Because I'm telling you, I have never, ever had a spirit or a haunting scare me as bad as that house did. There was something evil, cruel about that. Everything about that house after we moved in. Never again. I will do research. I will ask questions. I hope you enjoyed my story. Like I said, this was a true story. This really happened to me and my family. I will see you on the next video. Stay spooky.